Today we're going to be talking about our thesis statements for argumentation. Now we've already dealt with thesis statements in our urban legend essay, of course, but for an argumentative essay things are going to be slightly different, a little bit more focused in terms of what it is we're trying to persuade our reader to believe. And a great foundation for your essay is going to be a good thesis statement. Okay, because a good thesis statement does a couple of things. It focuses the scope or the size of what you're talking about. It gives your reader an exact indication of what it is you're going to try to argue. And it also guides the reader, gives them a sense of what's to come, which is a really good thing to create that coherence that we talked about. Now, I could just give you my principles of what makes a good thesis statement, but I want to use a little bit of inductive reasoning to go along with our unit. So instead, what I'm going to do is give you a few bad thesis statements, and then we're going to think about why are they bad, okay, to think about what they should be so that we can come up with our criteria for a good thesis statement. So the first bad thesis statement is this: stem cell research is controversial. Okay, take a moment and just think about why that would not be a good thesis. Well, hopefully you noted that part of the issue is that it's a factual statement. Stem cell research is controversial. There's no debate in that statement. The fact that it's controversial is just that, factual. So this is not arguable / debatable. Okay? So that should be our first criteria, okay, that a thesis statement should be arguable. And remember, that means that reasonable people can and do disagree on the position. That's not factual. That's not something that only an ignorant person would disagree with, right? Arguable means reasonable people can be on both sides of the issue. Okay, so that's our first not so good thesis statement. So we want to rewrite it to something to be debatable, such as stem cell research is a good idea. That's something a person could disagree with. 2, all people will benefit from human cloning. Once again, think about what is the issue with that thesis. For this one, it's definitely arguable because somebody could definitely disagree with this. But hopefully the issue you saw hinged on that word all. If you say all people will anything, benefit from cloning, all people will benefit from improved healthcare insurance, whatever the case may be, all that means is your opposition has to find one single person that will not, and all of a sudden your argument falls apart. Okay, so this is something that is not qualified. Okay, so a qualified statement means it's made less than 100%, something that has been specified in terms of how it applies. So we want thesis statements that are appropriately qualified. Okay? Because an appropriately qualified statement is specific enough to what you can actually show. So for instance, instead of all people, you'd say most people will benefit from human cloning. Or if you want to be a little bit more general while still being appropriately qualified, you could say society as a whole will benefit from human cloning, because then you're still leaving room for people who maybe won't benefit from such a process. Okay, so we want an appropriately qualified. By appropriate, we mean fitting your topic. Some topics you can say most, some you can say some you may be able to say mostly, some probably. Just depends once again on your topic, so be careful of the appropriately qualified aspect. And finally, let's say you come up with the thesis, I think the government should put extra taxes on tobacco. Think about the issue with this thesis. Well, the idea of the government putting extra taxes on tobacco is certainly debatable. Some people, including current politicians, think it's a good idea. There are others who think it's not. So we're in a debatable realm. But the problem is this, I think. If you say, I think something, nobody can disagree with the fact that you think it, right? It's not debatable that it's your thought, right? And also that personal language just makes it seem much more opinionated as opposed to something that is reasoned, okay? We know it's what you think because guess what? Your name's on the paper. But by saying I think, it makes it seem, as I said, much more opinionated. So we get rid of the I think and just say, the government should put extra taxes on tobacco. We have a strong thesis. Okay, and that's our third principle, strongly worded. Okay, we want strongly worded without that I language, that me language. In my opinion, I feel, I think. Anything like that we want to take out of our thesis statement. Okay? There is no I in thesis. Well, there is in the word, but not in your thesis statement. Okay? So that's what we're looking for in terms of that. Now, the nice thing is, when you're trying to come up with your thesis, you can think to yourself, I think, or I feel, and then say what it is you think, and you have your thesis. Just be sure you take it out of the sentence before your essay. Okay? So if we look to our criteria for a good essay, arguable, appropriately qualified, strongly worded. Make sure you have all three of those principles, and it's going to go a long way to setting up your argumentative essays for success.